The latest Watchdog report, of course, found that police forces in England and Wales are only charging a suspect in around 4% of thefts, 3.7% of those house burglaries and 3% of vehicle thefts, whilst we watch online of people being harassed for sending out quote-unquote offensive tweets. Is it a case of policing priorities that are wrong here?
Andy Cook is the new boss of the police watchdog. He's only been in post for a few months, and I'm really pleased that he is standing front and centre and saying enough is enough. Members of the public want a police officer to turn up when they're burgled. They want that police officer to give them advice about forensics, about whether or not the people have left behind fingerprints, and then they want crime prevention advice. They're not getting that, and the reason that they're not getting that is because of police priorities. Police don't routinely attend burglaries. They don't routinely attend when you've had your car stolen or even when you've been robbed. So they don't routinely attend. It's only if you've got additional evidence, which could be CCTV, witnesses, that they will attend. So quite often, those crimes that you report will be written off by the call handler. So when you dial 999, that person's going to ask you a list of questions, and then they're not going to send anybody. So that crime is not going to be solved. And the figures that you've mentioned are absolutely appalling. And I think it's really good that you've got a chief constable who's now standing up and saying, no, this needs to stop. Policing needs to go back to basics. And you hit the nail on the head there, because police officers are dealing with things that they didn't deal with 20 years ago or 30 years ago. They are dealing with the Twitter arguments. They are dealing with issues of mental health. They're dealing with issues around missing children or missing people. Police officers didn't do that 20 or 30 years ago, and now their job description has been expanded so much so that they can't do those basics.
Yeah, Parm, would you go as far as to say in this country we have effectively decriminalised theft?
I wouldn't say we've decriminalised theft. I do think that we need to reevaluate the resources that we've got, as in policing, and as public, as members of the public, decide what do we want our police forces to do. Because when you look at the figures, last year, 53%, that's more than half of the crimes reported were about cyber crimes and fraud. So that's people sitting in their own homes who are being robbed of their life savings, their bank accounts are being raided, and they haven't even left their homes. So do we want police officers to deal with that increase in crime? Or do we actually want them to be dealing with the party gates, the beer gates, you know, I don't know, even the fixed penalty notices that were given to the women at the Sarah Everard vigil? Do we want police officers dealing with that, or do we want them to come to your house when you've been burgled and reassure your mum? And do you want your relatives to be able to pick up the phone and know that they're going to get a response?
Absolutely, and I'm sure all of my viewers are screaming at the telly right now that, yes, they want their police to focus on their priorities. I'm wondering then, what do you make of politicians and future leadership hopefuls like Liz Truss saying what she would do is criminalise catcalling, so the police have an extra offence to police? Is this all just getting a bit silly?
I actually think it's quite shocking that anybody believes that you can prosecute somebody for catcalling. So you've got a person in a car or a van or something who's just catcalled. How are you going to find them? How are you ever going to track them down? And when you look at sexual offences, we only charge, in this country, we're only charging between 1.3 and 1.5% of rapists. So, and it takes 18 months to 2 years to get that rapist to court. So where on that scale is somebody who's wolf whistled or, presented that sort of behaviour? Where are they going to be? And is our criminal justice system, are the courts going to be able to deal with it? Let's be real here. Let's be real and actually say what we want, what is acceptable and what is achievable. That is not achievable. If you speak to any practitioners, any police, criminal justice type people, that's not going to happen. It's great headline grabbing, and it does start that conversation about behaviours, but it's not doable.
So, Parm, do you reckon a lot of coppers who are currently in the force right now will be perhaps watching this on their phones or whatever and saying, absolutely, I want to get on with doing things exactly like we've discussed. I don't want to be out there saying to somebody, "Oi, mate, I think you've tweeted something that someone else finds offensive." I actually want to be doing what I got involved with the police force to do in the first place, which is to fight proper crime.
Well, it's funny that this is the conversation after your previous one, because police officers aren't paid fantastically. They don't join for the money. They join because they want to help people. And the majority of police officers are good, caring individuals. They are there for the right reasons. And with the police officers that do walk the streets, they go to work. They want to take those bad guys to court. They want to have a successful prosecution. And when they're sitting behind desks doing reams and reams of paperwork with no end result, knowing that that person who called police yesterday still hasn't been visited, it just tears you apart as a police officer. And even as an ex-police officer, I still mentor people. And the conversations that I'm having with my mentees is, we're not allowed to do policing because we're being taken off to be on a squad that's dealing with fixed penalty notices for this offence or that offence. It's just ridiculous.